Welcome to the Urantia book. This book is the most complete and replete view of reality that you can get in 2,000 pages that exists on the planet, hands down. I'll take that to my grave, unless there is a new revelation that comes out, which very well could happen. But for right now, this is it, folks. It deals with these topics: the central and super universes, the local universes, of which there are 700,000. Our local universe of Nebadon contains roughly 3.5 million inhabited worlds, with a projection of having 10 million. It talks about the history of our planet, and that's what we're going to look at today. A little something different. We haven't delved into this. And it talks about the life and teachings of Jesus of Nazareth in a way that it's beyond explanation. You really have to experience this for yourself. I would say it doesn't even really take a leap of faith in order to read this book. It takes a little bit of crushing your own ego to think, oh, that can't possibly exist. There can't possibly be a book on the planet that's written by beings like the perfecter of wisdom, the mighty messenger, the divine counselor, one high in authority. That can't possibly be real. As long as you can just take that little part of your ego which says, no, I know more than that, there's no way, and try to approach it, you're going to be absolutely floored. So like and subscribe, because in this channel we talk Urantia book, the most advanced information, the most replete and helpful, because we're in a benevolent universe. So the more of truth that you learn, the more power that you will hold in order to change your own life and to change and help and serve those around you, to uplift them in their lives. And we'll have this rippling effect, which who knows how far we can go. I know it's a daunting task with this backwards planet, but who knows how far we can take it. There's a quote before we get into our reading here, which is on page 707, by the way, Dawn Races of the Early Man. There's a quote in this book that says that this planet is in a transition, and it will not settle down for 1,000 years. So we can't expect to have peace on Earth. However, we don't really know how far we can take this, if people have a real spiritual awakening. And I don't mean just the theological. But anyways, that's my spiel for the day. So please like and subscribe. We got to get this word out there. The first human beings is what we're talking about. So this is why this book is different than your other spiritual books. It talks about science, and it gives a history of the planet from beings. This was written by a life carrier, okay? So these life carriers were the beings who implanted the first protoplasm, the first spark of life, single-celled organism, whatever you want to call it, on the planet millions of years ago, millions and millions of years ago, which then slowly evolved up to the human beings. Okay, so they're spiritual beings that plant these sparks of life on favorable worlds where the temperatures are right, so forth, your Goldilocks planets, and then they let it do its thing. And so that is the perspective. Again, your ego might tell you, oh, how can that be? There's no way. Listen to how they explain this, okay? And it's really, just don't take my word for it. Listen and judge from yourself, okay? From the year AD 1934, which was when this book started to be written, back to the birth of the first two human beings is just 993,419 years. So about 700 years shy of 1,000,000 years, they say that the first two human beings appeared on the planet. These two remarkable creatures were true human beings. They possessed perfect human thumbs, as had many of their ancestors, while they had just as perfect feet as the present-day human races. They were walkers and runners, not climbers. The grasping function of the big toe was absent, completely absent. So that is they call it a mutation, when from two, they had primate ancestors, right? But then there was a sudden jump that they didn't have the same feet as their And then, so that's how that evolution takes place. There's a mutation that happens there. When danger drove them to the treetops, they climbed just like the humans of today would. They would climb up the trunk of a tree like a bear and not as would a chimpanzee or a gorilla swinging up by the branches. The first human beings and their descendants reached full maturity at 12 years of age and possessed a potential lifespan of about 75 years. Many new emotions appeared early in these human twins. They experienced admiration for both objects and other beings and exhibited considerable vanity. So there's that interesting thing there that an animal might not have for an object and covered a certain rune or some sort of early, totem thing. But the most remarkable advance in emotional development was the sudden appearance of a new group of really human feelings. The worshipful group, embracing awe, reverence, humility, and even a primitive form of gratitude. So that right there is what separates you from your animal cousins. They have this worshipful understanding, okay, where the animals don't have that. They're just perfect in that one purpose only. They have a very limited range of choice and function of their mind. However, they do have feelings. We can see that when we look at our animals, but they don't have these types of feelings, right? Theirs are more basic. They are avoiding, they can get anxiety and so forth. Fear joined with ignorance of natural phenomena is about to give birth to primitive religion. Okay, so that's how they're able to kind of look at these things and think about it. What's that storm over there? What's that volcano? Not only were such human feelings manifested in these primitive humans, but many more highly evolved sentiments were also present in rudimentary form. They were mildly cognizant of pity, shame, and reproach, and were acutely conscious of love, hate, and revenge, being also susceptible to marked feelings of jealousy. Okay, so you can see there's such a different range of things that our animals are just so much more basic, and we don't have to do mental gymnastics and apply all these extra things like what if our animals are actually XYZ and they really are able to deal with the stock market don't do, man complicates, God simplifies, okay? Look at and take it at face value. That's an animal. He's interested in food, he wants to be pet and that sort of stuff. He's not contemplating on if there's duality or non-duality in the universe. These first two humans, the twins, were a great trial to their primates' parents. They were so curious and adventurous that they nearly lost their lives on numerous occasions before they were 8 years old. As it was, they were rather well scarred up by the time they were 12. So their primate parents, were like these semi, as close to human as you could get without being human. So there is no missing link, so to speak. It literally jumps from animal to human in one mutation. And that's how people that study biology understand evolution to occur. They do call it a mutation, whether it happens in bees or anything. Very early, they learned to engage in verbal communication. By the age of 10, they had worked out an improved sign and word language of almost 100 ideas that had greatly improved and expanded crude communicative techniques of their ancestors, maybe like banging on their chest or something. But try as hard as they might, they were able to teach only a few of their new signs and symbols to their parents. They just didn't have the capacity. When about 9 years of age, they journeyed off down the river one bright day and held a momentous conference. Every celestial intelligence stationed on Urantia, which is this planet, including myself, was present as an observer of the transactions of this noontide tryst. On this eventful day, they arrived at an understanding to live with and for each other. And this was the first of a series of such agreements which finally culminated in the decision to flee from their inferior animal associates and to journey northward, little knowing that they were thus to found the human race. So they said, geez, it's really tough. And this might even be happening to you in your own spiritual journey. You might say, I'm having a hard time dealing with my family. They're just not at the level of consciousness that I'm at. And even Jesus of Nazareth said, forsake friends and family for things of God. And what that means is that you initially, it's not that you're damning them to hell, but you're saying, I'm prioritizing here. You guys are muddling around in these toxic relationships, banging on your chest, so to speak. But I want to, evolve beyond that. And what you'll find is that when you do that, those family and friends, those relationships come back to you, but in the divine right order, so that there isn't that lower natured tension. You're able to handle their um, idiosyncrasies or whatever you want to call it. You're able to not get mired, okay? As they say, if you swim with cattle, you wind up with hoof and mouth disease. But if you're transcendent and beyond that, then you can be in that water with the cattle and have your orb of protection, okay? So that's what they went off to do. They forsook friends and family for things of the divine. While we were all greatly concerned with what these two little savages were planning, we were powerless to control the workings of their minds. See, there is that free will. They really wanted them to just, they're like, holy shit, and millions of years have passed. We finally have humans. This is what we've been, this is what we work for. This is why we do this. And we don't want them to make the wrong choice, but they can't go in there and be like, let's switch their minds, because free will is inherent in the universe. We could not, see, it's not impossible, arbitrarily influence their decisions, but within the permissible limits of planetary function, we, the life carriers, together with our associates, all conspired to lead the human twins northward and far from their hairy and partially tree-dwelling people. And so, by reason of their own intelligent choice, the twins did migrate, and because of our supervision, they migrated northward to a secluded region where they escaped the possibility of biologic degradation through admixture with their inferior relatives of primitive tribes. See, if they mixed, then they would have went back to, square one. And they decided not to do that. So when I read that, I remember there was even this might have been in the book, or this might be how I interpret it, but they'll do things like cut down a tree in a certain area, or the divine will be able to put little things in place to make sure that they don't go, let's say, westward, right? So they'll put I don't know, just a big impassable barrier there. They're not controlling their mind, but they're subtly manipulating the circumstances, which if they can do it for them, then why aren't they doing it for us? I have experienced even in my own life when I've decided to become spiritual, things have just been I've been walking easier these days. Shortly before their departure from the home forest, they lost their mother in a gibbon raid. Crazy times, right, folks? Well, geez, how many people have lost their lives in a modern day gibbon raid, which would be a human animal, basically, somebody who's human but still at that level of thought that wants to do murder on, their fellow man. So it's just different times, but still having that animalistic nature and tendency. While she did not possess their intelligence, she did have a worthy mammalian affection of a high order for her offspring, and she fearlessly gave her life in the attempt to save the wonderful pair. Interesting. Now was her sacrifice, and we see that in animals too. They have that basic sense of thing, like, Lassie will save you if you're down the well type thing. Nor was her sacrifice in vain, for she held off the enemy until the father arrived with reinforcements and put the invaders to rout. Okay? Soon after, this young couple forsook their associates to found the human race. Their primate's father became disconsolate. He was heartbroken. He refused to eat, even when food was brought to him by his other children. His brilliant offspring had been lost. Life did not seem worth living among his ordinary fellows, so he wandered off into the forest, was set upon by hostile gibbons, and beaten to death. Okay, well, nice little ending there for you. Well, but, they go through they said it was a very violent, and we know that, tribes fighting, and then even primitive man inventing weapons, and continuing on to advanced man inventing even bigger weapons. But it's worth it. They see and they know that, like I'm saying, the higher beings who are observing our world and helping to guide it, um, they are aware that these inevitable tragedies are going to occur, but the universe plan is so far progressing and so far reaching, it is worthwhile to have this type of evolution. There's no other way to do it, or else you would just create them already at the level. Now remember, it goes from animal to human and then to spiritual being. And then there's that Morancha phase in between human and spiritual. So if you wanted to create them right at the spiritual level, then you would. Um, and that does happen in the universe. They talk about the central universes. But this age is about evolutionary journeys, right? The first human family and so forth. So anyways, thanks, folks, for checking it out. I hope that gives to me, hey, what else do you need? What else do you need? I really appreciate that understanding because it takes in the science, but then it takes in what separates us from the animals, and that is our worshipful understanding, our deeper sense of feelings, our desire to do, service and so forth. Okay, folks, take care, and we'll see you in the next time.